we will go ahead and get started. Thank you both for coming in. We are meeting here with candidates for Clark County Clerk. Would like to welcome incumbent Scott Weber and challenger Deanna Polly Hammond. I hope I said that correctly.
Yes, you did.
Also would like to welcome reporter Stephanie Rice. She will be sitting in on this meeting. She will not be asking questions in this forum, but she might try and catch you after the meeting. And just so you know, we are recording and videotaping this for use on our website. So we will move along. I would recommend please try to keep answers on point and relatively short, and we'll move along and keep this moving. So I'd like to begin with some opening statements. Deanna, if you could tell us why you are running and what you would bring to the office and for voters in Clark County.
You know, I'm actually running because I am the qualified candidate for the position. I have 25 years finance and management experience as well as a litany of leadership experience. I have dealt with multi-million-dollar accounts, most recently coming out of the mortgage industry. And, you know, I was working 70 hours a week. I was answering emails all weekend. And I needed life balance. And I thought to myself, you know, if I'm going to do this, I want to work for the people. And so that's what brought me to the table.
Great, thank you. And Scott, why should you be reelected?
You know, for taking office, analyzing what their business practices were the clerk's office and the timely turnaround of documents, I realized that, you know, the improvements we made impacted our community, and the future impacts of what our goals and plans are to do with that same process is instrumental in moving forward. I just think that I know that we've made a difference in the way the courts operate and the way people of Clark County and the United States actually access their documents in a real-time manner has been instrumental. So I want to continue on with making that availability of documents.
Right, thank you. And actually, we will later delve into the changes that have been made. Deanna, in your campaign material, you said your goal is to improve the community experience by boosting the overall morale for the team members at the clerk's office. Is there any evidence this is an issue?
You know, I have spoken with several of the members of the staff in the clerk's office, and there is a morale issue. I've also spoken with many members of our community, and almost every networking event, forum, anywhere that I have been, I have gotten the feedback that they go into the clerk's office and they're treated badly. And that's a morale issue. You need to be treated kindly at the counter, and the citizens of our community are important. You know, we can't. Our legal counsel is important. They deserve to be able to navigate the court system easily, but so do the members of our community, and that's important to me and to Clark County. So we can talk about customer service, but I've heard that it's actually gotten worse over the last 4 years.
Scott, what would you say to that?
You know, I am so proud of our staff. We have come leaps and bounds, making sure that all issues are addressed that are brought to us. You know, the phone calls I get, you know, I respond to them within minutes, not days or hours. We have put out a feedback survey that we've started out probably over 3 years ago, and every time that we get feedback that is less than perfect, we either call them back, we address it, and we try to figure out what the issues are. One of the issues was the computers in the lobby were slow and really antiquated, so we ended up adding 4 new PCs and upgraded them. We upgraded our microfiche to a digital machine. So I've taken the any kind of feedback that we've gotten, and we've actually, you know, listened to it and try to answer positively how we can make things better.
Now, for adding computers or updating, how much budget do you have, and where does that money come from?
Part of that comes from, there's an internal replacement cost that the county has on a schedule. AOC, the Administration of the Courts, also has money that's set up on every so many years that we have available. And then the third place is for every Liberty license that we sell, which you guys are also customers, there's a small amount of money that's set aside for purchasing new equipment. And with that, because the amount of licenses we've added, that has opened up purchasing all the equipment in the courtrooms.
Could I piggyback on your budgeting question real quick?
Yeah.
Could you tell us what your budget was when you first took office and what 2011 and what the budget is this year?
I don't have the exact number.
It was 599,000. It's gone up about 6.25%. It's
Over the 4 years.
Over the 4 years, and actually is what it has done is, it was $6,103,000 in 09-10. When it went into 11-12, there was an increase of 1.4%, and then but we've realized in that the 13-14 budget, there's been a 5.25% increase.
What's the number for 13-14?
13-14 was $6,488,003.
And how about staffing levels? Do you recall what the FTE count was when you first started?
I know that in the beginning we had to let several people go. This last year, or the last budget cycle, we had to add an employee. Once they added a commissioner, we were authorized to add one more clerk to match that. And then there was an increase in salaries for raises or steps that they hadn't got for years. So that was as far as the budgetary increases. And I think that the other things that we asked for were for additional scanners, and that came out of the O&M auditors fund.
But I'm sorry, did you say how many employees there are?
I think there's 46 or 47, so right in there. We have a couple positions that we're in the transition of refilling.
There were 48 employees in 2010.
Yeah, and then due to a union vote of going back from 7.5 hours to 8 hours a day, that was 3 positions that had to be cut. We tried to go enough for the transition to hold on to those positions, but we had to cut back. Then one of the things that we did do is that we were open at 8:30. Instead of going the other direction, we decided to open up at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's typically a line out the door at 8:30, and coming from my manufacturing side is that by changing to 8 o'clock, people trickle in all the way through. So then you can manage with one person at the front counter throughout that time and let them trickle in. And observing the other clerks throughout the state, we chose not to close during lunchtime to make sure that we have access to the public.
You know, this is a bit of an odd duck kind of race, I think, to the vast majority of residents who are out there. And so, 2 questions related to this, but my first one is, I mean, if you had to sort of wrap up in a sentence or 2 why you guys even exist, why you're important, why whatever you do is important. Could you guys do that for me and the vast majority of people who are out there?
Why don't you go ahead and start, Scott?
So I think the biggest importance is the fairness of the documents, making sure that what actually transcribes gets filed and gets retained for eternity. I think that is the key part. The whole part is to be impartial from the judicial. Whether that needs to be appointed or elected, it's still up in the air with me. I know that, in my opinion, there's things that I probably couldn't have done if I was appointed in the last 4 years, and one of them that was going, paperless with as many judges as we've been able to. That that time frame that we've taken to get to that probably wouldn't have been as quick, and I'm very excited that they were on board.
You know, I think that the clerk's office is actually one of the most integral parts of the Superior Court system. It's where business begins and it ends. All of the record keeping is done there. It is the financial officer of the Superior Court, and I think knowing your budget and knowing those numbers is extremely important, especially with continuing technology and making sure that technology is implemented properly. And that's where we need to go for the future. But yeah, you know, and it's part of Federalist 51. I mean, this goes way back to the 1700s. You know, I mean, it's our constitutional right to have a clerk in the courthouse.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying I think for the vast majority of residents out there, they wouldn't know you from Adam or Eve.
Nobody knows you. That's the question you get all the time. What does the clerk do anyway? Do you get to move to Mayberry? You know?
The second part of that question, Deanna, and it's I guess directed mostly at you. Sometimes in a race like this, and one searches for issues, you know, and unless you got caught with your hand in a cookie jar, or you know, you're really doing stupid stuff. That's a plug. Usually the morale issue thing sort of comes up in races like this, which is like nobody's happy. But let me press you on that a little bit. I mean, really, I mean, can you support that in any way? Can you name names? Can you do anything, you know, other than just sort of saying that?
You know, I don't want to name names because that just is bad. Yes, I could if I absolutely needed to. But, you know, I think that looking at morale issues, and morale is one of those things that if you have a good leader, you generally have happy staff. Can you make everyone happy all the time? Of course you can't. I mean, that's just a given. You get that in any kind of setting, especially when you have that many employees. My main concern is the people that I've spoken with in the community. And I keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again.
But you're not going to name them either, right?
Well, I suppose I could. I could go.
Well, go
I
ahead.
could make a list.
Of course.
But you know, I could go. One of my dear friends, her name's Suzanne Knowles, and she has fought tooth and nail over the last 4 years on it's a child support issue, extended post-secondary child support. And her paperwork has been lost. She's gone down to the courthouse on numerous occasions, been to the clerk's office. It's basically, take a number, we can't help you, we don't know what to tell you, you're just going to have to refile the paperwork. So there's one good example, and those are the same kinds of things that I'm hearing on a fairly regular basis.
Do you know anything about this particular issue?
Never heard her name.
Okay. So let's assume something like that is happening, and assuming that it's happening, it sounds not great. Would that come to your attention, or should
Well,
it come to your attention?
Not necessarily, because there's a lot of paperwork that we don't even receive it until after it goes through court or it gets filed. When it goes to the judges or the attorneys, I mean, they hold on to the paperwork until they're ready to file it. So there's a lot of stuff that does not show up because it wasn't agreed upon or it wasn't signed.
These are files, paperwork that we're talking about that was filed at the courthouse.
Right, that's what I am assuming. But again, assuming something like that happens and the paperwork was filed,
Yeah.
would somebody bring that to your attention and say, "Hey, we've got a real"?
It's always top priority. I mean,
Well, would you have been made aware of something like that?
I'm most certain. I know that one of the things that we have to deal with is we have a warehouse that's off-site with 10 years worth of documents from previous administrations, and most of it's all scanned in, but it's not completely verified. And on the other side of it, when an issue comes up, we'll go pull the whole file, and then we'll audit it at that time. But this sounds like current issues that we're having. That it seems a little odd.
But would that a current issue like this,
Absolutely.
would it drive up to you, or you would
Yeah.
somebody make you aware of it?
Yeah, because between my IT staff and myself, I mean, we've made it a focus to do our internal audits.
So if
And-
this was happening, you'd be surprised that you wouldn't have been alerted.
Absolutely, because the way we process our documents, we have fail-safes, whether they're there or not. And so if it was not there at all in the start, it wouldn't show up.
And could you do me a favor so that I don't waste any more of this time? When you go back, could you check on this particular issue to see if somebody is aware of this thing and just get back to us? What was her name?
Suzanne Knowles,
Suzanne. Thank you.
Knowles.
Thank you.
Deanna, do you think should this be an elected position or an appointed one?
You know, I really think that it should be an elected position. However, I think it should probably be more of a nonpartisan position. There is some policymaking function that you could probably do through the office, but as a general rule, I do feel that nonpartisan would probably be a better elected.
Speaking of that, since it could potentially drift into change, where do you guys stand on the home rule charter?
I personally have supported the charter. I have officially endorsed the charter. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe in let the people decide, and that's where I'm at right now in the whole charter process. I know early on, I was vocal to many of the freeholders about different issues that I had, but one of the things early on was they wanted to keep the charter simple and that not to cloud it up with too many different changes. And one of them was, each individual elected position on how we wanted to deal with it at this time. And so I chose to not speak out on it.
Oh, wait a second. How are you going to vote on it?
Me?
Yeah, you.
I'm not going to vote for it.
You're going to vote against it?
Yeah.
How come?
There's some issues that I just have with it. I haven't completely figured out all the nuances of what the pluses or minuses are, but I haven't been out for or against it.
But you are against it if you're voting against it.
Yeah, I think that there could have been a couple different changes, but that didn't happen. But
So are you close to Commissioner David Medor?
no, he's in another building down the street.
I don't mean physically.
I don't have conversations with him that often, so I would
Okay.
say no.
Okay, so it's
A
coincidence that you and he are against this.
yeah,
Okay.
but I do feel that the people need to make a choice on it,
But what I don't understand with that answer, that people need to make a choice, is if you are in favor of the charter, which can be
Mhm.
adjusted, it can be done, that gives people a choice. Where we're at right now doesn't give people a choice. Why wouldn't you be in favor of the charter?
I thought that this could have been solved much sooner when we could have just went for a petition and added 2 more commissioners and could have solved some issues. I think that adding, and from what I've learned, I think by adding or dividing the powers, then we're going to have to add a lot more staff to support that, to divide the powers. And I do, at the end of the day, I think that's far more expensive than it is by adding 2 more full-time commissioners.
Right, but you would agree, I think you should agree, that by being in favor of the charter gives people this choice that you're talking about.
It does. I mean, like
So why would you be in favor of it?
I still think that if we add 2 full-time commissioners, it would have been a better choice. I
Okay.
think it would have, to have a commissioner represent us full-time instead of having 5 part-time commissioners, I think it does a disservice to Clark County, and that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I understand, but there just seemed to be a conflict
it's
between
not as
giving people a choice and voting against giving people a choice.
no, that's my personal choice.
Right.
And then, like I said, I'm not out stumping either way.
Right, I hear you.
But I do feel that it could have been laid out differently.
Okay.
And it's much more complex than just yes or no. I mean, the charter
Well, at the end
charter
of the
changes.
day, that's the vote.
It changes a lot.
Sure.
And so, and we still have an option to go back and add 2 more commissioners, if it does not go through.
Right.
That's something that's, I think the number was 14,000 signatures to add that, and that's a relatively low number to add.
Okay.
Now, Scott, you've made transitions to make the office largely paperless. How much did that cost, and how has that been received?
So, I would call it paper on demand, because, the reality is that paper is still an essential piece of what we do, but you only print what you need. So that reduces the amount of paper you have. But what it does give us is that when you need it, we print it. We don't go dig through stacks. We don't go look through files. We print as we need it. So it saves our staff time. It saves our counter time. When somebody comes up to the counter, we're printing whatever documents they need.
And everything is available online?
Yeah, and it's actually, they went digital back in 1998. What we've done is we've basically taken the system that we've had and we've turbocharged it. One of the things that I've done in the last 4 years is I've gone out and visited other counties, and I found great ideas that we could implement that were proven. And that was the first thing that he did, is that come back and we would discuss them, and then we'd implement them. So we could implement them pretty quickly. I would say we're in the top 4 as far as the way we're doing our processes. King County has some really cool stuff that I would love to have, which would be e-notification. But between King County and Pierce County, they're completely electronically filing. So it's a much greater control of your process when everything's identified, the date it came in, the time it came in, who touched it, how long it took to process, and those are the things that we have now. And for most of our employees, they really enjoy those benefits, that we're held accountable by those things. And then there's a few that probably aren't so happy that they're held accountable by those few things. But I believe by and large, it's really made their lives easier and not have to make up excuses why documents aren't there.
Deanna, as far as you can see, what additional changes have to be made?
Well, the e-filing does need to be streamlined. In talking with legal counsel and their staff, out, as I've been out there, there are issues with the e-filing portion. Mostly, files need to be converted to TIFF files, and that's on a Windows-based system. On a Mac-based system, I've heard now. I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk with an attorney in great detail about it, but it's a huge workaround, and a lot of those attorneys are still filing at the counter because for Mac-based, which most legal offices
So these are court documents being filed by attorneys,
right,
related to a specific
correct.
case. Okay.
Correct.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that is one thing. I have a great deal of experience with implementation, and I've heard a lot of things, like I said, while I'm out in the community, and it appears to me as though it was implemented, it was pushed out the door very quickly. Not a lot of beta testing, there's a lot of bugs with it still, where when you implement a huge project, you go through numerous processes to get there. I think that there probably could have been a lot of steps added to make that transition easier. It would be looking at that, what has been implemented currently, and just going back and fine-tuning that. And I make it sound simple. I don't think it's a huge undertaking, but it's not a simple process. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of an archaic system at the courthouse, and I know that there have been a lot of upgrades there, but I think more care could have been taken with that implementation process for our legal counsel in the county.
Scott, did it go as smoothly as you would hope?
Actually, for a 1998 system, that we're using, I think it went really well. One of the things that we had done is district court was not using an imaging system, so roughly over 2 years ago, we talked them into going on to Liberty, And at that time, one of my staff members probably donated a couple thousand hours helping them build their whole e-filing system. We waited almost a year and a quarter after their implementation before we started ours, because we wanted them to work out the bugs. One of the things that we also did is on our Liberty subscription to access the documents, we had them throw in the district court at no extra charge. So all the people that have Liberty also have access to district court. So early on, we use a TIFF format because there's a problematic issue with the PDF file and the way it's structured, the way it comes in. We do have a workaround for Mac users, but one of the things, the difference between us and district court is district court, it's mandatory to e-file. We're not. We're, it's you can choose to e-file or not, and so a lot of attorneys that come out of court with their paperwork and they want to file it or they want to file it before, will gladly accept their paperwork. So it's more of a hybrid system, and to keep that flexibility. And as time goes, we're making improvements. I tell my staff that we're working on this is, what we're doing today may not be what we're doing tomorrow. I mean, we have to be nimble at making changes, and that's what we've done. We've made major improvements as we've gone.
I think one other thing that I would have done is surveyed our defense attorneys before going through the process.
Surveyed them for what?
What they needed and what their needs were. I think that would have been an extremely important piece.
I'll ask this question to both of you, but I'll start with you if that's okay. Obviously, you're running against Scott, and you think you're better than Scott for this office, otherwise you wouldn't be here. What is Scott's weakest attribute?
Community involvement. I really think that from our elected officials, we should have more community involvement. And I think it's been nobody knows who's in the office now. And so I get that question, all the time. So I would think that would be a weak point. And also lack of history for management and it being in a business setting. And the courthouse is a business setting, and I've been a financial controller. I've been in the business corporate world for 25 years, and you can't glean that experience in 3.5 years. You just can't.
Scott, what's Deanna's weakest attribute?
I have no idea. I've never even actually met her.
Is this your first time?
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, I've never been introduced to her. So.
Well,
Hi,
okay.
Scott. I'm Deanna.
Oh, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Well, in lieu of you answering that question because you don't know her, you don't want to say anything though about that. I mean,
I'm working more on what we need to do and where we're going, and that's my most important thing. So, I really don't have anything to address, about her platform or what she's done.
Well, at least tell us what you think about what she believes about you, your weaknesses. Community involvement, you got any?
Yeah, I'm involved. I just don't think it's our job to necessarily go out and try to educate everybody on what the clerk does. I mean, a lot of the functions, about less than 1% of the population probably actually uses the clerk's office. It is important. When people ask, I can share, and I always do share what we do. But to make a big issue of it is not always my biggest thing. It's kind of hard to get invited to go to an elementary school and talk about the clerk's office.
But are you all doing the community thing? Are you going to Dancing with the Local Stars, for example?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I got the invite. I try to make as many events as I can.
All right, I'll see you there. What about?
But and I'm sorry, just for a second, I want to jump in on that. Any idea how many people do use the clerk's office?
I don't have a finite number.
Any numbers on how many customers come in, or over the course of a year?
I know that. I don't know the exact number. I know that Some years are busier than other. So typically we get 2,000 filings a day, and that's on an average. And we're able to handle those. We're able to have those documents scanned in before 8:30, 9 o'clock every single day. And those documents are accessed right on the bench at that point. And the entry on most days, we're working on the same day's entry. Before I got there, it was a week to a week and a half to get it viewed online. And that was the tail end of the process.
So what about this other charge, the lack of management experience?
You know, I'm here. I'm doing.
Okay.
I believe I'm doing an awesome job of managing our staff, and what we've accomplished in a short amount of time has been phenomenal. I'm looking at other clerks' offices throughout the state. I'm the treasurer of our Clerks Association on my third term, and I get out and I talk to these people, being on the board. We get to look at what other people are doing, and I'm going to tell you that we have made huge changes that other offices have plateaued out. This last 4 years we have made those huge changes that needed to be made. And I think, and I know if I was not there, I don't think that it would have happened in the same fashion.
Deanna, it can be difficult for a challenger to make
Sure.
inroads. Have you received any endorsements?
I have. Setting aside personal endorsements, I have the National Women's Political Caucus of Washington has endorsed me. Southwest Washington Labor Council has endorsed me. IBEW Local 48 has endorsed me. Amalgamated Transit Union has endorsed me. And Local 335 has endorsed me.
Now I'm curious, why would unions be interested in endorsing in a clerk's race?
I think that, well, first of all of the employees in the clerk's office are union employees. There's that part of it. And I also grew up in a union family, and so I've always been very union friendly. I believe that we should get paid what we deserve to be paid.
Scott, endorsements?
I'd say my top one would be Judge Poifer, retired Judge Poifer. He was the one that actually was the centerpiece of getting where we're at on Paperless. I was worked with him to get that kicked off, and then he worked with the next judge down the line, Judge Woolley, Brent Boger. There's a whole host of attorneys that endorse me, because of things that I've been able to come through with. Denise Limpkins, Rachel Brooks. I've been very, very involved with the Vulnerable Adult Protection Order process. I've actually spoke at the state bar on the Vulnerable Adult process. Before taking office, there was under 25 VAPOs were filed. We're going to cross over 100 here real soon this last year. So the awareness has got out on the importance of vulnerable adult protection, and working with community members that have been part of the vulnerable adult, that have spurred me on to do more, and that's been very beneficial. I'm also part of the truancy board. Been part of that for the last 3 years for Evergreen School District. Things that impact our kids, and sometimes that's not always the easiest solutions that come up with the truancy board, but it's rewarding.
Great. Then, really quickly, 1 minute. Give us your final pitch. Why should you be elected?
Like I said, I have the financial background. I have the management experience. I have the implementation experience. I am very involved in the community, and I want to remain that way. And I think that in order for things to truly go forward and be done properly, that you need a qualified candidate in there to do the job, and that's what it is. It's a job, and that will actually step up and use the platform to do more things for the people in our community. I'd like to see kiosks put in there for low-income families. You know, we've got a lot of people in there that are filing paperwork on their own. That way it doesn't get to the judge's office or, you know, judge's chambers and get kicked back because something's wrong. You know, one thing that we didn't bring up, and if you don't mind, Mr. Weber in his primary election ran to abolish the office. And I was wondering if we could address that just briefly, because it's an important part of the court system.
I
And
think she's right on that, Scott.
and it was done to, you know, in the voters pamphlet in 2010, it stated that it was, you know, he was running to eliminate the office. There were some, you know, wording in the middle, and then basically it was to save the taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. And here, you know, we've got an increase in the budget from, you know, the second part of his term at 5.25%. The office is still there, you know, and which is good. I mean, you know,
Well, you don't want to abolish it.
I don't want to abolish it. No, we need
Let's
the clerk
get Scott to weigh in here. Go ahead, Scott.
You know, the point was is that there's alternative ways. I mean, should it be elected? You know.
Did you want to abolish it, or you said it shouldn't be elected?
You know, it's kind of it's one and the same. The fact is that as an elected position, does it need to be elected? Does it even need to be partisan? I mean, to me, it does not matter who comes to the counter or who's.
But you need somebody
So,
in that position.
You need and that would
The position can't just go away.
exactly. But as an elected position, it could go away.
Right.
And we have seen it throughout the state. You know, and
So 4 years ago, did you say it shouldn't be elected, or did you say it should be abolished?
it was one and the same.
But that's not the same.
well that the elected position should be abolished is what.
Okay, but there should still be a county clerk.
Yeah,
That's what you said 4 years
Absolutely,
ago.
somebody has to be in charge of the records.
So
And other counties, you know, they have that. They have an appointed person. Now, talking with each one of those,
Charter county?
those would be a charter county.
What the heck? How are you against this charter? It's not adding up.
So when the charter passes, you know, then we have an opportunity.
Oh, okay, so you believe it'll pass.
When the charter passes, it's more than likely will pass. That's when the time comes that we start
Right,
setting up
okay.
all the other positions, because there's a few other positions that follow the
You-
clerk's
you know,
office.
You're gonna have to go home tonight and sleep on how you're gonna vote on this thing, because I got a feeling you're gonna email me and you're gonna say, you know what, I've changed my mind on that. What was I thinking? That's just my opinion.
So I guess the thing that gets me is it says while I work to phase the office out, I will do everything I can to save the taxpayers' money. Just gonna,
Thanks.
sorry. Thank you.
All right, I think we got 1 minute for you now.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I believe that we have to take the taxpayers' money. You know, with the increasing in our budget, mostly due to the raises that were implemented outside of my control, which I do believe that our staff deserves raises. You know, if people realize what an average clerk makes, they would be maybe surprised. It's one of those positions that it's hard to retain people because of the amount of money that they do make. But
What do they make?
I'd say between $15 and $22 an hour, depending on seniority. So I think it is an issue, but we also need to have a clerk in every courtroom. You know, aside from what we pay, we do have a high demand for staff that is really dictated to the way we process our paper and our process. So I do feel that the next 4 years, there's a lot of things that we can implement that will definitely streamline what we're doing even better. I mean, we've got a great track record of putting things in place, and I know that the list of things that we have for the future are just as great. So I look for your vote, and I look for another 4 years.
Right. Well, thank you both for
Thank
coming
you
in.
for having us.
Thanks, guys.